creation by Elohim. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Elohim filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayim, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Sheshach rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Elohim, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elohim then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elohim gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elohim made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light, Elohim called out the name Ya'um, and to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age.
The Ketub Abarayas, or the Paleo-Hebrew, is a language over 5,000 years old. It chronicles a story branching forth from ancient time. His story, Yahweh. Walk into his story. Read the Paleo-Hebrew scriptures.
Prepare to be shocked, appalled, aghast, offended, and dismayed. Now, you may not know this, but as an official YouTube content provider, I am only issued one controversy card per year, and I'm probably not going to cash it in tonight. Sorry to disappoint you. I'll simply let the Bible be controversial on its own and offend people. I don't need to do anything but just read it to you guys. Spoiler alert, Moses takes a wife and she's black. So we'll be talking about that tonight, amongst many other things. And one of the things I want to start with, though, because, I got a lot of research done this week. I'm not going to be showing it all to you tonight. I'm just showing you just a smidge of what I've done this week before we get into the Torah portions. I love where we're at right now in Numbers. Hope everyone had a good week, by the way. Of course, my name is Noel Joshua Hadley. I should have said Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom from under the dome, coming to you from my trailer here somewhere in South Carolina at the moment. And what do we have here? I wanted to start out talking to you about gorillas and something that really bothers me about the Mandela effect. And it's the fact that I recall a time when gorillas beat their chest, like with their knuckles, not like nowadays they do this right here. You can't, I guess you can't see my chest on camera, but you could see this in the pit. You don't want to see me slap my chest anyways. But this is what gorillas do nowadays. They slap their chest with their palms open. And, they'll tell us that they make a lot more noise doing that. I get it. I really do. I get the scientific aspect of this, but I think you and there are people out there who remember a time when gorillas beat their chest with their knuckles. So, I did a Google search some years ago. You probably still can. And so I took an actual screenshot here, and every single time there is an animator or an artist depicting, like they go to the zoo or they go to Africa or they go somewhere and they see a gorilla in action. And they're like, I'm going to depict something that looks realistic. When a gorilla is being, aggressive and the boss, right? He's in alpha mode and he's going to beat his chest. They always show him beating with his knuckles. Now, maybe in the last several years they've started to show something else. In fact, they have. But then you see a real picture over there on the right, and all of a sudden he's not doing that anymore. What gives, right? So here's some of the media stuff. Of course, my favorite, Donkey Kong. That was the first, just so you guys know, the first arcade game I have that memory in the early 80s, probably like 1984 or something like that. Maybe 1985-ish. I remember going into an arcade and seeing Donkey Kong, popping in that, I guess it was a quarter, must have been a quarter, and playing Donkey Kong. Wasn't very good at first. I think I died with the first barrel, probably ran into the little flame or whatever, but it was still, an amazing experience. But you got, King Kong there, the 1933 film. You have the new Peter Jackson one, and it goes on and on. I could show pages and pages and pages of gorillas beating their chests with a closed fist. Well, something happened this last year when actually a lot of things happened as I was traveling across Europe. When we go to Cologne, Germany. Now, this cathedral right here, as you can see in the picture, I'm not focusing on the Mandela effect. I'm focusing on, at that time, gargoyles. I have yet to update my gargoyle paper with a lot of this information. But I'm looking high, I'm looking low, I'm looking at the gargoyles, going inside and outside. This is the incredible cathedral in Cologne that you can see pictures of World War II. And the entire city was carpet bombed, just ashes, and this cathedral remains. And so right around the corner, I'm probably right around on this corner right here. By the way, this cathedral in Cologne is where the three wise men are interred, supposedly, the shrine of the three wise men. Went and paid my respects to the three wise men. That's another investigation for another time, though. And I do have a paper on that, by the way. But I look in the window, and there's just this book there, this pink book called Mendini, right there at that corner. And I'm like, hey, look, there's another illustration right there of a gorilla beating its chest with its fist. I just took a quick picture. Didn't think much of it. Just thought maybe I'll use it one day. And went on my merry way. I took hundreds of pictures that day. And so I decided one day, I'll look into this. Well, come to find out that Mendini is actually a very popular, his full name is Alessandro Mendini. He's an Italian designer, an architect known for his radical designs. It's actually almost like a genre in itself called radical design. And he did this cover for this magazine called Casa Bella. It's an Italian magazine. And it became the kind of the official symbol of radical design architecture. So you can see right there, 1973. So I looked this up and I go, okay, did he invent this? No, it's actually a photo montage. I'm like, a photo montage. So basically it's a collage. And he took an actual photo of a gorilla beating its chest, and he put it on a magazine cover. So I had to do some more digging on this. And I came to find out that this gorilla, there's the actual postcard right there. I had to hunt down the postcard. I do a lot. For these few seconds I'm with you guys, I do a lot of research. I like really dig into this stuff. So I went and found the actual postcard. And this comes from, wait for it, this postcard comes from the American Museum of Natural History. And believe it or not, I have seen this gorilla in person. I never thought about it back in the day. I came this close to going to New York with my family. I would have been there this week. It didn't really work out. I would have gone to this museum for sure, and you can go still see him. So this gorilla, of course, he's beating his chest with his knuckles. And this gorilla was bagged by a man named Carl Ackley. In 1921, he went to the Congo. He killed these gorillas, these apes, and he was a professional taxidermist. And his job as a taxidermist was to make them look as realistic as possible in their natural environment. He went and observed these actual apes in person, and when he stuffed them as a taxidermist, he did it in such a way that resembled what he saw. So we have right there a monument to these gorillas beating their chests, who apparently they've never done this in history. It has never been done. We have if you think that you have any kind of memory of gorillas beating their chest with their closed fist, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Just be prepared to be gaslit for the rest of your life, apparently, unless this ping pong's back, and then we'll be gaslit all over again. But I have all sorts of questions about this. Why is it that all these artists and taxidermists and people in history are observing these things and giving them closed fists if they never did that. That makes no sense whatsoever. It is what it is. So there's that right there. Another thing I wanted to dig in with you guys tonight was Michelangelo the Divine, or Michelangelo the Divine One, in the House of Medici. So as you can see, this is the Sistine Chapel right here. And I'm not going to be, there's a lot on this guy that I'm not going to be covering. I haven't updated my statue of David in Florence yet. When I do, I will be sure to tell you guys about it. We'll get there. I think I've talked to you guys about Florence Cathedral, so I won't be covering that tonight. But I do want to talk about, and I've talked about with you guys, the Mandela effect of Moses Has Horns. I'll probably do that again, maybe in the coming weeks, because I think we're about to cover that. Can't remember if I covered that this year. But I do want to go over the creation of Adam in the Sistine Chapel. Now, the thing is with the Sistine Chapel is I don't have any pictures of it myself. The reason being is that they strictly forbid any kind of photography in the Sistine Chapel. These are pictures that I took in the rooms all around it. I mean, the Vatican just, you take these tour groups through these rooms and they give you breathing room. You're kind of in each room for 2 or 3 minutes or whatever. But I'm telling you, if you've ever done this, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is so overwhelming, the artwork in every single room. I mean, you're going to recognize some of these paintings. And when you're standing in front of this, you're like, I've seen this my whole life. And here I am in front of the actual painting. It's overwhelming. Like this one right here with the philosophers, guys, like this is like, they're as large as life, right? It's this little shrunken thing on the screen for you, but those people are as large as life. And it's mind blowing. So of course, when you go into the Sistine Chapel, you're told to behave. There's a bunch of dudes there in suits, kind of sunglasses, like this is Italy, right? This is the kind of place where, people end up in the backs of the trunks of cars. So you don't mess around in Italy. And I was on my best behavior. Some people were not. Some people were taking pictures, but I was behaving. And so this is the kind of a panorama of the entire ceiling. And I have to tell you that when you're there, it really is. I mean, you're just like, I don't even know how to process this. You're just looking up at this and just in awe, just shocked at what you're looking at this beauty from a guy, Michelangelo, who apparently turned his nose up at painting. He wasn't into painting. He was into chiseling stone. But he's like, you know what? I guess, I'll give the painting the old college try. I'll just paint the chapel ceiling, give it like 10 years of my life and just, do it. But anyways, you can see right there the famous painting of the creation of Adam. If you can see where I'm pointing on my mouse, it's actually not the center of the room. The actual dead center of the room is right here. It's the creation of Eve. And so he's showing that he's going through the whole creation story, and he's showing that the apex, the magnum opus of creation is actually the woman, not man. But what's interesting is as I'm staring up at this, because I had written this already, I was well aware of the Mandela effect, obviously, 10 years ago at this point. And I'm looking up at it, I'm going, because I remember it looking very different. And I'm like, how does the way I remember it actually fit into that very confined rectangular space? Well, I'm going to be taking you through this and giving you some examples here. So this is right here. This is the creation of Eve, which is in the very center of the room. And this would be right below it right there. So there's what I have decided is that there's about 3 different iterations of the creation of Adam that we have seen over the last 30, 40 years. So if you have no clue, if you've never looked into this Mandela effect before, the way I remember this, so right now you could see that Adam his hand is he's actually almost equal his eye level. His eye level is just below God's, but it's almost equal. And his hand is kind of going straight out, and it's actually above God's hand, and it kind of cups down, curls down. His fingers kind of become a little flamboyant almost. The way I remember this painting is that Adam is actually reaching directly up. He's way under God. God is above him, and God is reaching down with his finger, and Adam is reaching up with his finger. Oops, I just hit the wall and something fell. And he has one erect pointer finger, and then the others are kind of cupped behind him. And then what I'm going to show you is another variation in which his fingers become more kind of flimsy, kind of like this, but they're still under God's, and now they're actually raised above. And one of the things I've kind of wondered about the Mandela effect, because we're actually finding with this that there are with these memories of the Mandela effect, you're seeing various versions of it. And because my theory is that we're going into a singularity event, and the best way I think to think about this is that time itself is a river. And this is what's great about a river, is that if you've ever floated down a river, you got on a raft, canoeing, whatever, you're going to know that sometimes you go around like a bend and you just kind of go really slow. And it's like you're just to like a dead still, and you have to go out there and paddle to go faster. And then all of a sudden you hit the swiftness and it goes really fast. And there's actually theorists out there, people way more brilliant than I am, who are saying that's exactly what time is like. And so some of us, when we're saying, man, time is just flying by, it might be because we really are on that point in the river where it's just flying. And then there are times where people live lives where it's just really slow. That could totally be very accurate. The time is kind of relative to that. It's carrying us along with the current. But if you're going down a river and you can imagine other rivers pouring into yours, and then your river is getting bigger. And this is what's kind of happening with these different dimensions around us, these different realities that are pouring into the singularity event, in which one of the courses of the rivers, the realities are kind of taking over. And so you're having these people with these different memories. Now, I think it's completely possible. I actually think the Mandela effect has been going on for hundreds, thousands of years. I don't think this is a new phenomena. I think the only thing about it is that we're recognizing it now because we can communicate on the internet, and we could see these digital changes, and we can go in chat rooms and discuss and kind of all agree. I think in times past, centuries past, where people couldn't do that, they just had their memories, and it just was what it was, and the memories died with them. And I don't think this is a new phenomena by any means. So here's a great example, as I remember it, over here on the left. This is a Polish movie poster. Never seen it. It looks like it's about some sort of like cyborg kind of artificial intelligence type of thing. Not really sure, but so you can see where they're bringing in the whole, the man is the creator, right? He's creating a machine. But this is how many of us remember it pretty closely, where God's hand is got an erect finger, and the man has one. They're going up, meeting in the middle. Man's coming from below, God's coming from above. The one on the right over here is kind of interesting, because this is what I would consider the intermediary, where they get the right idea that Adam is down on the ground below him, reaching up, but you can kind of see he's got the cupped hand fingers right there, which is kind of like the modern iteration, except that it's much lower. So we're going to see these two at play through the different residue. So here's one from E.T. Again, this is the way I pretty much remember it. And this made it on the soundtrack, the movie poster, very clearly doing the Sistine Chapel. The difference is here, instead of the God, it's the ethereal being who is, entering his pineal gland type of thing and manifesting. And he's the kind of fairy caretaker of the forest. And, there's the moon child, a lot of stuff going on there, whatever. I don't need to go through all that, but that seems to be, again, there. Keep in mind, these artists are mimicking the Sistine Chapel, right? And we saw this poster and go, oh yeah, that's funny. They're mimicking the Sistine Chapel. This is how we remember it. Now here's two iterations with The Simpsons. And, The Simpsons never ceases to not come up into these kind of conversations because of the predictive programming and just all the things that they've covered that have come to pass. So there's two different versions here, and this will not be the last time I think we see The Simpsons tonight. And this first one again with Bart over here on the left, it's sorry, yeah, it's irreverence. That's a lot of the people mimicking these are. I'm not going to. I'm not their spokesperson, as you guys know, but over there with Bart reaching up to God, that is again how we remember it. So you can see how Adam's kind of at a 90-degree angle. He's more on the floor. He's not at the angle he is now, and he's under God. But then we see so that was 1999, and Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons, actually made that postcard. In 2007, I had stopped watching The Simpsons by like 2000, 2001. So I haven't seen any episodes since that time. But this comes from an episode called The Homer of Seville. It came out in 2007. We see the intermediary here where, well, it's kind of a little bit closer to the one we have now, but he's no longer got the erect finger, no longer pointing out. He's kind of more up higher. So that's 8 years later, 2007. So things have changed. Now, again, maybe when this episode first came out, it didn't look like this. I don't know. I don't know when these changes exactly happened. We didn't really notice them until about 2015. But then, okay, so yeah, so this is like just like the modern one we have here. All right. The modern one, the one we remember. Here's the intermediary one right here. This one's kind of crazy because this one comes from 1991. And it was a blink and you'll miss it in the back of an episode. It's season 2, episode 22. And you can see that the United States Postal Service, they're the god in the situation. They're getting struck by lightning and bitten by dogs. And you could see that the Adam character, a woman here receiving the mail, she's much lower than God, reaching up, but she's got the flimsy fingers. But then here we have artwork with Homer, and the God character here is Matt Groening, the creator of the Simpsons, and it's pretty much just like we remember. Here we have Jim Henson, creator of the Muppets, and this is called The Creation of Muppet. It came out in 2010. And of course, all the different Muppets play the cherubim angels that you'll see in the painting. But this is an intermediary here, so it's not the erect finger, it's the flamboyant hand, but it's lower than God's. Kermit is still lower here. Now, this one is fascinating. This one really got to me because we see Jeff Goldblum. His character of Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, 1993. And then secondly, we see an older Jeff Goldblum. I don't know what year this is, but you can clearly see it's more recent. He's mimicking his Jeff Goldblum pose. But and not only that, he's mimicking the Sistine Chapel. But the one you see over here, I kept looking at this because clearly they photoshopped this in. But the hand and the arm looks like an actual painting because the God is an actual painting. I think the Adam hand there, that is exactly as we remember it. Exactly. So that's just really freaky. I don't know where the source came from this. But then you see the modern one there with Jeff Goldblum. It's pretty much exactly like the Adam now of the Sistine Chapel. So you can see how to fit within that rectangular square, Adam has kind of been propped up more. He was a little bit lower before. And I'm sorry to do this to you, but here's, I don't know, it's some music video. A guy named Johnny. His name used to be Johnny Utah. I had to look him up, and he wasn't even born until 1995. He didn't start making music until 2019. I stopped listening to music in like 2012. I realized at that time that all the best music was behind me. So I don't even know who this guy is, but some points to this guy here. This music video came out in like 2022, and again, they're doing a better job of it than the modern iteration for sure. I didn't realize that there's almost a genre in itself of people trying to mimic the Sistine Chapel, and fascinatingly, all these people. I mean, keep in mind this would be a hard shot to do because you've got a split second, right, to capture this. Now, obviously, the one up here on the top left is photoshopped. I get it. This here is actually 2 separate pictures. Nevertheless, he lined it up in such a way that was really well done. These two, I think these are genuine. This one right here is definitely genuine. I don't know if that's photoshopped or not. He could be. I mean, that's a pretty high, steep jump in a pool if it's not photoshopped. But they all get it, right? They both have the pointed finger. and the people on the grounds. And anyways, there's the Mandela effect for you, the crazy world of the Mandela effect. And another irreverent one here that I'm going to close on this one. But again, what's yeah, the irony here is that, of course, it's praising evolution, and I don't think anyone who probably listens to the channel is an evolutionist. I certainly am not. So again, it's, very irreverent. But the irony here is that it actually managed to capture the evolution of this, because, like I said, I've shown 3 or maybe 4 changes throughout the years in this, and this is the original creation of Adam. If you just put Adam in there instead of the chimp that many of us remember. So you're no longer going to find this. And points, bravo to the guy who made this, because he's clearly, I don't know, maybe he comes from a different dimension or something, the one I remember, but it's a more recent painting, and he's like looking at the Sistine Chapel and go, yeah, I'm not going to do that because I remember him pointing up at God. So there's that there. All right, let's get into this tonight. Ba Madabar, week 33, Paleo numbers. We are going through the Paleo Hebrew Scripture. So for those of you who, for whatever reason, are tuning in and maybe haven't picked up on this before, like maybe it's your first time or you've done it before but didn't pick up on this, we are reading through the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures. This is not the modern Hebrew. This is the language that the Bible was written in. I can't state this enough. I need to repeat this every single week. And I should show you, I'm going to type this in. Well, let's see. Let me see here. Where did it go? Well, here are a lot of the ebooks. I'll just show you this real quick. I'm adding these every single week. So I do want to say, for those of you who are Tuck Book members, thank you. For those who are Patreon subscribers, anyone who is supporting this ministry, thank you very much. We survive based on your generous support, and every single dollar you guys give through the Tuck Book Club, through Patreon, we give that exact same amount back every month in the form of coupons you can use for t-shirts, you can use for whatever our products is, books and so on. So the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures, and I'm adding these up every week. You could redeem these for like $5 a month. You can download one of my mini papers, including some of the ones I've already shown you. And what's great about this too is that I should show you just all the updates I've done this week alone. I've updated like 10 papers with like 10 new pages in each one. And even if you bought one 6 months ago, a year ago, you're like, hey, wait a second. Well, you just go download it again. It's free, right? Once you purchase it, you can download it as much as you want. So that's not a problem right there. I wanted to show you the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures. Let's see if we can find it in here. Let's go to Paleo Hebrew Scriptures right here. And there it is right there, the Torah. This is still on pre-order. We hope to have this released very soon. We just, if there's any delay on it, we're just making sure it's right. And Pamela and Rebecca they have the physical copies on hand. They're going through making the changes. As soon as we update them, we will start shipping them out to you. So we have a lot. This has been the most pre-ordered book in our history. A lot of you have been pre-ordering it. Get your orders in, and we will ship it out to you very, very soon. I'm really looking forward to it. All right, so if you're following along with the Torah portions, you want to pair these up with the prophets or the Gospels. There you go right there. Zechariah chapter 2 and Matthew chapter 14. Those are pairing up with the prophets and the Gospels. A couple memes going to throw your way. This is good advice, by the way. I get up every morning and I go out and I search for memes for my group. Sometimes I don't find any. Sometimes my foraging is really good. Found this one this week. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. Advice for everybody, for all you boys and girls out there. When you think life is rough and you're like this, like, can I ever catch a break? Again, remember, it's not, one of the ways to put it is that it's not the years, it's the mileage, right? But a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. Now, in other terms, when you're trying to decide which wine goes best with global societal collapse, it's a tough decision for all of us who drink wine out there. The white or the red. We're not really, it's hard to know what to go with the news cycle, but it's the life we live. It's the burden we carry, trying to figure it out. I've got a few memes for you tonight. This one is just right up my alley, guys. This is like tuck material right here. You guys know the Peter Parker memes, and he says, I've started reading the Nag Hammadi and other Gnostic texts. And he says, Peter, Gnosticism was condemned as heresy by the ruling powers of the church. In which he says, I already told you I was reading its text. You don't have to sell me on it. So I know someone out there is laughing because that's like totally like our territory right there. Last meme of the night, I promise you. I think. Can I promise that? I think so. If there is another meme, I apologize. I didn't realize. But anyways, we all have memories on stairs. You either have the memory on the left or the memory on the right. And the memory on the right very much I can identify with. I have no memory of the one on the left. There was a staircase in Ireland. We were staying in this home built for hobbits. And the staircase was so like the steps were so small. I'm walking down and I just went, all of a sudden I didn't feel the ground under me. I'm like, oh no. And I flew off the whole staircase, landed on the bottom on my back. I was in so much pain. I'm like, I don't know if I can even walk. So I'm in all this pain. And I go on Facebook or something like that, and I nonchalantly, I'm talking about it in a conversation. And this one Torah guy, he's like, does your back hurt? Like, are you in a lot of pain? I'm like, yeah, it is hurting pretty bad. And he's like, oh, I need to pray for you. I need to pray for you right now. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I need to call you on the phone. Like, okay. And so he calls me on the phone and he pray. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but they pray for your healing on the phone. And inevitably the question comes afterwards. And he's like, he prays and he's like, so how's your back feeling? And I'm kind of being a little coy about it, but to be honest, it was a total miracle. Like while he was praying for my back, it was completely healed. The pain went completely away and I felt brand new. But I was being a little coy about it. And I'm like, well, it's feeling better, I guess. And he's like, it worked, didn't it? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. And he's like, your back's healed, huh? I prayed for your back to be healed. It was healed. And I'm like, yeah, it was. So anyways, it was a miracle. All right, let's get into Yahuwah's prayer. Reading from the Paleo. And we get into our Torah portions. Our Father, set apart is your name, and your royal dominion, your pleasure, your delight, you will exist in Shamayam and in Eretz. And give us our bread continually and pardon our faults, our sins and missteps in the same manner in which we forgive those who commit faults, sins, missteps against us. And all, do not bring us into the hands of testing, but guard us from all evil. Amen. What a good prayer. Reading tonight from the Shema. Hear, understand, and obey, O Yasharel, Yahuwah, Allah, Yanu, Yahuwah Akkad. And you have loved Yahuwah your Allahia with all your heart, and with all your nefesh, and with all your strength. And these matters, these words set in order, which I have commanded you this day, shall be upon your heart. And you shall teach them with sharp sayings unto your sons, and you shall set these words before them when you sit down in your house, and when you walk along the way, and when you lay down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a strong established sign upon your hand, and for bands between your eyes. And you shall write, ketub, them upon the maza'uzah of your house, and upon your gates. And then, of course, that's a reference to your doorpost. All right, let's read Numbers tonight. We're reading Numbers chapter 8 through 12. Do I want to read through from here? No, I'm just going to go ahead and read from there. Hope you guys are all doing good tonight. Thank you for being here. Or morning, afternoon, evening, whatever day of the week you're watching this. And Yahuwah the ever living set words in order toward Al Mashahad to declare, set words in order toward Al Aaron, and make a declaration toward him. In your causing the lights to ascend, he shall light 7 lamps toward the front of the face of Manuraha, or the menorah. And Aaron fashioned in that manner in the front of the face of the menorah. He caused to ascend the lamps like that which Yahuwah the ever living had commanded Mashahah. And this is the workmanship of the menorah. Turn work of gold into the side into her blossom, like her vision which Yahuwah the ever living had shown unto Mashahah. Even in that manner was fashioned the menorah, or Manuraha. Then the Levites are consecrated unto Yahuwah. And Yahuwah the ever living set words in order toward Al Mashahad to declare, take the Levites from the midst of the sons of Yasharel and make them shine, or purify them. I like that, though, to make them shine. I almost think of like, shining your shoes. And in this manner you shall fashion for them to make them shine. Sprinkled water of the sin offering, and let pass over a razor over all their flesh, and wash his clothes, and so make him to shine. And take a young bullock, son of the herd, and his gift offering of fine flour mixed with oil, and a second young bullock, son of the herd, you shall take for a sin offering. And he shall bring near the Levite to the face of the tent of meeting, and shall gather all the assembled sons of Yasharel. And he shall bring near the Levite to the face of Yahuwah the ever living, and the sons of Yasharel shall support their hands over the Levites, or the Lahwayam. And Aaron shall wave the Levite as a wave offering to the face of Yahuwah the ever living, from the sons of Yasharel, and he will exist to work the work of service unto Yahuwah. And the Levites shall support their hands over the heads of the young bullocks, and you shall cause to ascend the one for a sin offering, and the one for an ascending offering unto Yahuwah, to make a covering over the Levites. And you will station the Levite to the face of Aaron and to the face of his sons, and shall wave them for a wave offering unto Yahuwah, the ever-living. Then shall the Levite be separated from the midst of the sons of Yasharel, and the Levite shall exist for me. And afterwards, in this manner, shall the Levite enter into the service of the tent of meeting. And he shall make them to shine, and shall wave them as a wave offering. For as a gift they are given unto me from the midst of the sons of Yasharel, in the place of the firstlings of any womb, the Bakaor of all the sons of Yasharel, I have taken them unto me. For to me all the firstborn, the Bakaor among the sons of Yasharel, so all the firstborn among the sons of Yasharel, among Adam and among beast, on the day in my striking against all the established firstborn in Aratz, Matrim, I made them set apart unto me. And I have taken for myself the Levite in the place of all the firstborn among the sons of Yasharel. And I have gifted the Levite as gifted ones unto Aaron and unto his sons from the midst of the sons of Yasharel, to work the work of service for the sons of Yasharel in the tent of meeting, and to make a covering atonement over the sons of Yasharel, that no plague exist among the sons of Yasharel when the sons of Yasharel are drawing near toward the Kudash. And Mashahah and Aaron and all the gathered assembly of the sons of Yasharel did fashion unto the Levite like all which Yahuwah the ever-living had commanded unto Mashahah for the Levites. In that manner the sons of Yasharel fashioned unto them, and the Levites were cleansed, and they washed their garments. And Aaron waved them as a wave offering to the face of Yahuwah the ever-living, and Aaron made a covering atonement over them to make them shine. And afterwards, in that manner, the Levite did enter to work their work of service in the tent of meeting into the face of Aaron and into the face of his sons, like that which Yahuwah the ever-living had commanded Mashahah over the Levite. In that manner, he fashioned unto them. We'll be talking more later on in Numbers about the spread of disease. And, in this day and age, it's always, I guess, perfect timing to talk about it. We just went through COVID, half a decade ago now. I can't believe that, how the time's flying. And, they keep trying to push the next thing on us. And I think here in the West, I think too many people have woken up. They're not taking the bait. They're like, I'm not falling for this. Unfortunately, some people still do. But I will say this about any kind of disease that spreads, real or imagined, is that, and I think that the application works for real and imagined in the same way. Like imagine would be like psychodramatic or whatever it is. We call it a hoax if we want. Is repentance. I mean, it says right here that where the holiness is, there's no disease. So think about that. And when these diseases spread through the camp, it's a serious call to repentance. And the sinners, we're going to see some of that tonight. Like people start dropping dead. And there's certain reasons that it happens. Now, every single one of us is going to die. Someday I have no clue how I'm going to die, obviously. Like, duh, right? Maybe it's going to be disease, maybe sickness, maybe we'll be hit by a car, maybe an airplane will fall out of the sky and hit me, or a piano like in a Looney Tunes cartoon. I have no clue. We're all going to die someday. We can't, but I'm talking more in terms of society as a whole. When the next event happens, that's I think a time for us to get into the field of battle. Trench, that's the word I was looking for. Trench warfare. Get in the trenches, man that gun, and bring people to holiness. Get out there and live a life, and not like beat people over the head, with like a Bible or whatever the way of doing that is. But get out there and like bring people to repentance, bring people to holiness. That's how we combat this stuff. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, set words in order toward Al-Mashahad to declare, this is that which is for the Levite. From a son aged 5 and 20 years and higher, he shall enter into the host in the work of service in the tent of meetings. And from a son aged 50 years, he shall turn back from the host in the work of service, and he shall no longer not serve any longer. But he shall minister with his brothers in the tent of meeting to keep watch, and shall not do service. So it's a little vague here on what the keeping watch is once you turn 50. I'm only 4 years away from that. I'm a little concerned. I don't know what it's going to be like when I turn 50, but apparently, according to this, no more heavy lifting for Noel, I guess. I get to stand in the back and watch, and I don't know, it's a little vague. Like this, you will fashion for the Levite concerning their service. Instructions regarding the Passover or the Pesach. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, set words in order toward Al-Mashahah in the wilderness of Sayunuya in the second year of their going forth from Aratz Mitzrayim, and the first Kadash to declare. And the sons of Yasharel shall fashion the Pesach in his appointed time. On the 14th day of this month, this Kadash, between the dusk, you shall fashion him in his appointed season, like all his statutes, and like all his judgments shall you fashion him. And Mashahah set words in toward the sons of Yasharel to fashion the Passover. And he fashioned him the Pesach on the 14th day of the month, between the dusk and the wilderness of Sayunuya, like all that which Yahuwah the ever-living had commanded Mashahah. In that manner, the sons of Yasharel did fashion him. And there were men who existed unclean due to a nefash of Adam, and they were not able to fashion the Pesach on that day. Now, this is one of the great things about the Torah, is we've already been given the commands for Passover in Leviticus. Actually, maybe Exodus, going way back. So they received this 2 years earlier, and the way the Torah plays out is that it gives you these commands, and then it starts playing out these scenarios, and it starts giving you more commands, and you're like, what's going on with this? And this is where I have stated before, and I will continue saying this, that people in the Torah movement make this big deal about how there's only 613 commands. You better not add or take away from that. But my theory on this is that there could be 1 million commands. There could be 1 billion commands. There could be there has to be mathematically an end to the commands. But as Yahshua came to teach us, it's all summed up by 2. Love God, love your neighbor. right? So it's kind of like, okay, I want you to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And we read that passage in Deuteronomy 6 tonight. And I want you to love your neighbor. But since you're having a hard time understanding that, okay, we just got this situation. So I'm going to have to expound on this for you. And you're going to have to do this and this and that and that. And we got up to 613. And of course, the problem with the Talmud is that they made it really stringent. But what do I mean by like a million laws? Well, there's a great law in there about you go up and you see a mother bird with the eggs. You can eat the eggs, but you have to shoo the mother bird away, right? And it's like, well, that's kind of a weird law. Well, why is that even there, right? And another one is, like you got to have a railing on top of your house. And this is a great one for the Torah community because they're like chapter and verse. Like if you were to go up to somebody's house and they have neighbors, like, okay, they have a pool, but they have no fence. And the neighbors have little children and the children can wander over and fall in their pool and drown. And you're like, it would really be a good idea to maybe put up some fencing just to love your neighbor and assure that their children doesn't fall in and drown. And they'll be like, chapter and verse, you're adding to the Torah. It's like, no, I'm not adding to the Torah. It's just, I know that's not a specific command there, but we want to love our neighbors, right? So it's one of those things where I just think he's giving very specific commands of, okay, if you're in this situation, this is how you love God and love your neighbor. But, this could magnify into hundreds of different situations. So now we're getting into one where people are like, wait a second, I wasn't able to keep Passover this year because I was unclean. And so this is the situation that comes up. And here is what we read. And there were men who existed unclean due to a nefash of Adam. So a man died and they were doing the Torah by burying him. You're supposed to bury someone before the sun comes down. It's a way to show honor to, you don't let their bodies rot out there, right? It's just a way you love your neighbor. You love your family by treating their bodies as sacred. But they were unclean, couldn't keep Passover. And they were not able to fashion the Pesach on that day. And they drew near into the face of Meshach and into the face of Aaron on that day. And the men, those speaking toward him, declared, we are defiled of the nefash of Adam. To what purpose are we withheld so as not to approach with the offering of Yahuwah, the ever-living, on his appointed time in the midst of the sons of Yasharel? And Meshach declared to them, persevere, and I will hear and obey what Yahuwah, the ever-living, commands unto you. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, set words in order toward Al-Mashahah to declare, set words in order toward the sons of Yasharel to declare, if any man exists unclean of nefash, or perhaps on a pathway distant from you, or perhaps in the circuit of your generations, and he would fashion the Pesach of Yahuwah, the ever-living, in the second Kadash, or the second month, on the 14th day. So keep in mind, Passover's first month, 14th day. So now you're saying you got to skip a whole month. Hopefully you're clean over the next moon cycle. He may fashion him with unfermented bread and bitter herbs shall he eat them. He shall not retain any part of him until Bakor, or daybreak, and he shall not break a bone of him, like all the statutes of the Passover, so he will fashion him. But the man who is clean, and he exists not on a distant pathway, and leaves off from fashioning the Pesach, then that nefash shall be cut off from his people, for he did not draw near with the offering of Yahuwah at his appointed time. That man shall carry his calamity, fault, his penalty of sin. So this is an interesting theological, philosophical question that comes up. I know some people, not too many, but I know at least a couple that I could think in my head right now, who really they're really questioning, or they don't keep the first Passover because they're going, well, there's no temple, I'm not in Jerusalem, and I'm on a journey, right? I'm out of the land, and so that's me right here. I have to keep the second. So this is something that maybe everybody should ask. Maybe we shouldn't keep the first Passover. Now I keep the first Passover, and I'm going to give you my reasons why later tonight. So you're going to have to stay tuned. And if a stranger who dwells among you, and he fashions the Pesach unto Yahuwah, the ever-living, according to the statutes of the Pesach, according to his judgments, in like manner he shall fashion. One statute shall exist to you, both for the stranger and for the native born of the land. And on the day the Mashkin dwelling place was raised up, A cloud mass covered the Mashkin dwelling place of the tent of the revealed precepts. And in the Yarab, he existed over the Mashkin dwelling place like the appearance of fire until daybreak. In that manner, it existed continually. He covered him as a cloud mass by day and the appearance of fire by night. I was just trying, like when I was reading this week, I sat here, I paused, and I was just trying to imagine. I just can't imagine what it's like. I can try to like look out your tents and you at night and you just see a flame of fire there. And you just know that your God is inside that flame of fire. You might even see the fire. Like I was trying to imagine like that scene with the fourth man in the fiery furnace in Babylon, the son of God in there. I was trying to imagine like maybe you can even like you're looking at the fire trying to find a form. Do you see arms and legs? Do you see something in there? Do you see it move? You know, do you see maybe like something resembling a face kind of turning around? You know, what did this look like? Did they see stars? Did they see the moon or the stars? People talk about the months, and I see that here, but it's like, how do you even see the moon if well, you certainly want to see the stars, because that flame of fire would just blind, you know, kind of whiten them out. When the mouth of the cloud mass ascended from over the tents, and afterwards, in that manner, the sons of Yashua would pull up camp. And in the standing place where the cloud mass settled down to dwell, then the sons of Yashua would set themselves down and encamp. This does not describe our lives. I mean, here we are. Some of us are still going to Sunday church. Some of you are. I'm not judging anybody. If you are, great. You know, if you're there for the fellowship and be with other brothers in the faith. But many of us have left the organized religion, particularly Sunday worship, in order to pursue the Father, because we found that it was too much. There was just too many thorns, tears, just people trying to stop us, you know, spiritual controllers trying to make it very difficult, and we just had to leave to pursue the Father. But you know, we're at this point where we are out in the wilderness, and we're learning out here, getting ready for whatever is coming next. And it's like that, where Yahweh, he'll plant some things in front of us, some truths that a former generation didn't know about. And it's like that, where we just kind of pick up and we move wherever the pillar of fire goes. And some people will be like, yeah, I'm not moving this time. I'm not moving with you guys. See you later. Right. I'm not accepting this new thing that's come along. But who knows what's coming next? At the mouth of Yahweh, the ever-living, the sons of Yashua would pull up camp, and upon the mouth of Yahweh, the ever-living, he would remain encamped all the days in which the cloud mass settled down to dwell of the Mashkin dwelling place. Personally, honestly, I'll tell you, I hopefully, here's what I think is next. I think it's the paleo. I really do. There are so many people who are just not accepting it right now. I've had phone conversations with other prominent people who are like, they're like, no, I don't like the paleo. And they're not talking about the translation we have. They're like, I don't like the paleo. And I'll be like, well, what's wrong with the paleo? You know, and they'll give the reasons. I'm like, well, wasn't the Bible originally written in paleo? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, so what's the problem? What's the problem here? It's like the Bible was written in paleo. The original people read it, and this is the language of Abraham and Moses and David. And I'm telling you, I think this is the next thing. I think this, and people are going to be waking up to this. This is where the pillar of fire is going. When upon the cloud mass tearing over the Mashkin dwelling place, time stretching out a great many days, the sons of Yashua would keep watch over the stations of Yahuwah the ever-living, and did not pull up camp. The cloud mass, he will exist present, ready, innumerable days, over the Mashkin dwelling place. Upon the mouth of Yahuwah the ever-living, he pulled up camp. And the cloud mass existed present, ready from Arab until daybreak, from dusk until daybreak. And when the cloud mass ascended in daybreak, then they would pull up camp, or perhaps if he remained at daytime, and at night, the cloud mass ascended, so they would pull up camp. Wouldn't that create a little bit of anxiety? I mean, that's kind of putting it wrong, but the first thing you did when you woke up in the morning, you know, you would open up that tent flap or that yurt door or whatever, and you'd be looking out there going, is it moving or is it staying still? Because you don't know how you're going to plan out your day. You're trying to figure out what if you're going to be walking that day, or, I don't know, building something. Or perhaps 2 days, or perhaps a month, or perhaps days upon days, a year, that cloud mass remained over the Mashkin dwelling place to set down over him. Then the sons of Yasharel remained encamped and did not pull up camp. And when he ascended, they lifted up. Upon the mouth of Yahuwah they encamped, and upon the mouth of Yahuwah they pulled up camp. They kept watch over the station of Yahuwah the ever-living upon the mouth of Yahuwah in the hand of Meshahab. And we see an order to make silver trumpets. And Yahuwah the ever-living set words in order toward Al-Mashahad to declare, fashion for yourself 2 silver trumpets. From turn work you shall fashion them, and they will exist to you for calling out Ma'kira'ah, the gathered assembly, and for breaking the encampment. When ye shall Thuku'ah among them, then they shall assemble toward you, all the gathered assembly, toward the entrance of the tent of meeting. And conditionally, should one Thuku'ah be blown, then shall assemble the lifted up chiefs, the heads of the thousands of Yasharel. But should you blow a Thura'u'aha, then the encampment inclined eastward shall set out. But should you blow a second, then the camps inclined southward shall set out. A Thura'u'aha they shall blow for the breaking of camp. But when the congregation shall be called together, you shall Thuku'ah and not... You're killing me, Pamela. Thura'yah'u. And she writes here that these are the difference between these two, the Thuku'ah and the Thura'yah'u, is that the first is a series of shorter striking sounds, whereas the second, the longer word, is a loud blast. So that's giving the difference there between the orders, the marching orders. And the sons of Aaron, the priest, shall Thuku'ahu with the trumpets, and they shall exist to you for a statute to a time of long duration, for as far as the eye can see or perceive, circling throughout your generations. And if you enter into fighting into your land against an adversary who causes narrowness or distress, when oppressing you, then he shall blow an alarm with the straight silver trumpets, and he shall be remembered to the face of Yahuwah your Allahah, and you will be preserved from your haters. And in the day of your joyful banquets, your gladness, and in your appointed times, and in your Rash Kadash, you shall Thuku'ah on the straight silver trumpets over your ascending offerings, and over the sacrifices of your shalom, and they shall exist unto you for remembrance to the face of your Allahah. I am Yahuwah your Allahah. The march from Sinaiah in martial array. And I've already pointed out that, these are military formations. They're getting ready to go kill some Nephilim. They may not know that, but they may not know yet who's on the other end, but that's who they're intending to go get. And he existed in the second year, in the second month, in the 20th of the month. The cloud mass ascended from over the Mashkin dwelling place of the revealed precepts. And the sons of Yasharel set forth, breaking their camps from the wilderness of Sinaiah. And the cloud mass settled down to dwell in the wilderness of Paran. And they first broke camp upon the mouth of Yahuwah the ever-living by the hand of Meshahah. So this is kind of interesting that this is the first time that they are leaving Mount Sinai behind. So pay attention to what coincidentally, though there are no coincidences in this, happens as they leave behind the mountain of the law where they receive the Torah. And leading out the large military standard from the camp of the sons of Yehuda in the first position, according to their armies and over his host, was a man named Nakashaun, son of Amminadab. And over the host of the tribe of the sons of Issachar was Nathaniel, son of Zor. And over the host of the tribe of the sons of Zebulun was Eliab, son of Halun. And the Mashkin dwelling place was brought down, and the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merariah lifted up the Mashkin dwelling place. And leading out the large military standard from the camp of Reuben, according to their armies, and over the host was Eleazar, son of Shadaiah. And over the host of the tribe, the sons of Simon, or Shamaun, was Shalamaiah, son of... There's that guy. I counted this guy last week, and I'm just like, his name is Shadaiah. And over the host of the tribe of Gad was Eliasaph, son of Deuel. And setting forward, the Kuhathuyam bore up the Makudash, and he has raised up the Mashkin dwelling place until they came. And leading out the large military standard from the camp of Ephraim, according to their armies, and over their host was Eliashah, son of Amayahud. And over the host of the tribe of the sons of Manusha, or Manasseh, was Gamaliel, son of Fadah Hazor. And over the host of the tribe of the sons of Benjamin was Abiadan, son of Gada Unuya. And leading out the large military standard from the camp of the sons of Dan, bringing up the rear of all the camps of their armies, and over his host was Amaya Shadiah. And over the host of the tribe of the sons of Asher was Phagaiah, son of Akron. And over the host of the tribes of the son of Naphtali, or Naphathulah, was Akayah, son of Ayanun. These are those setting forth of the sons of Yasharel when they broke camp. Meshaha invites, I guess you pronounce his name, Kabab, to join Yasharel. And Meshaha declared unto Kabab, son of Raul, this is his father, his brother-in-law, essentially, right? Because Raul is his father-in-law, Meshaha's father-in-law. We are setting forth toward the standing place which Yahweh the ever-living said will give to you. Walk with us, and we will do well for you. For Yahweh the ever-living has set a word in order, an excellent, pleasing plan toward Yasharel. But he said, assumably this is Kabab, said toward Meshaha, I will not walk, but conditionally toward my own Arat and toward my own family will I walk. I have to really think about this, because there are passages where it says that the tribe of Dan, for example, that they never really saw the pillar of fire, or maybe there were times where they didn't. And you're like, how does that work? Well, maybe it was there was kind of a piercing of it was more like a kind of a vision, a spiritual reality coming into the material world, kind of similar to the people who saw the Perusia of Yahshua over Jerusalem in the 70 AD region, something like that. Because I have to wonder if some of these people, like, I mean, how in the world, if you saw Yahweh in that pillar of fire, why wouldn't you want to follow him around instead of just going to, your favorite idol god or whatever, right? But whatever, to each his own, I guess. I just have to wonder if he really was able to perceive it. And he declared, do not forsake us. I assume this is Meshaha speaking again. For upon this manner you have acquired knowledge of his camping in the wilderness, and you will exist to us for eyes. And he will exist if you walk together with us. Yes, he will exist the goodness which Yahweh the ever-living will rightly with us. And then the same doing will we do unto you. And he broke camp, journeying 3 days from the mount of Yahweh. Now, in the kind of Talmudic commentary, they say that Yahweh only wanted to walk 1 day from Sinai, but that Israel, they had already rebelled by this point, and they walked 2 additional days to get as far away from Sinai as they could. We might cover that later, I'm not sure. And the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh the ever-living was lifted up before their faces, a path of 3 days to spy out for them a place of rest. And again, according to the Talmudic literature, the place of rest would have been the first day, but they were making excuses already, like, nope, it's not restful enough. We want to get as far away from Sinai as possible. They were hoping that the Torah was behind them. And the cloud mass of Yahweh the ever-living was over them for days, and they're pulling up stakes out of the camp. Because in a lot of ways, this generation really does, man, it just plays with Christianity today. Because according to the same commentary, when they were in Egypt, that a lot of these Hebrews who were slaves, they first of all, they had better food in the wilderness than Egypt. When they were complaining that they wanted to go back to Egypt because they had better food there, it wasn't that they had better food in Egypt, is that they had a lawless life in Egypt. they didn't want the obedience to his commands. They're like, we want this God, but we kind of enjoyed our life as slaves because we can kind of do what we want in the barracoon afterwards, be a little rambunctious and not have to live this holy life. And he existed when the ark set forward that Mashaha declared, "Arise, Yahuwah, dash into pieces your enemies, and your haters shall flee from your face." And upon resting, he said, "Return, Yahuwah, unto the myriad thousands of Yasharel." And then we get into the mutiny in the encampment. This is where I said that Numbers is like a camping trip, gone wrong, which is pretty much every family camping trip imaginable. And here we go. And the people complained, lamenting like mourners, and it existed calamities hurtful in the ears of Yahuwah, the ever-living. And Yahuwah heard and responded. His anger kindled, and the fire of Yahuwah began to consume among them and devoured the extremities of the encampment. Now notice that the mourners are coming from the extremities of the encampment. So the closer you get to the outer darkness, figuratively, the more, the worse it is. Who's on the outside? Like Dan and some of those tribes. But here's the thing. Every single one of you who's a parent out there can probably identify with this. And the more children you have, ever more so. So I'll give you guys a little example about my family, specifically the family I grew up in. I grew up in the Beaver Cleaver household. I mean, people told me this my whole life. My parents was like June and what was the dad's name? June and something Cleaver. I know that the child's name was Beaver Cleaver, I guess, which was me. I would get told this by men, by women, man, you live in, and it was a very innocent household. Unfortunately, my parents did divorce when I was an adult, and it was over the dumbest reason. It was that my parents never argued. They just got along. And then one day they had a disagreement. They didn't know how to resolve. And that was it. Really that ridiculous. And so I remember my mom, when she's kind of like trying to justify the divorce, she comes up with like several things my dad did over the years that just irked her, that justified divorce. One of them was a time in 1992 when we were driving on a family vacation, and my dad, the only time in his life a cop pulled him over and gave him a speeding ticket. And when the cop left, he turned around and he blamed my brother and I for it. And my mom was so upset about that. She's like, can you believe your dad blaming you for his speeding ticket? And I'm an adult by this time, and I'm thinking, I actually said this. I'm like, I probably deserve that. In fact, my dad should have taken me out of the car and beat my butt with my brother. Like, we were like arguing and bickering in the back seat, and he can't take it anymore. And he was like, and he like got pulled over. Like, any of you parents out there, you could like relate to Yahuwah here, where it hurts his ears. He's leading them. He's in the driver's seat, and the children are in the back, and you're like trying to swat them in the back. Like you have to go and beat their butt just because they can't stop arguing. This is exactly what's happening here. And the mixed collection, which was among them, turned aside, desiring, and in addition, the sons of Yashar also turned themselves aside, bewailing and declared, "Who will give us flesh to eat? We remember the flesh which we ate in Mitzrayim free of charge, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic." First of all, again, like I said, they did not have better food in Egypt. And keep in mind that they have looted Egypt. They've only been gone for 2 years. They have basically all their sheep, all their cattle. If they want food, they can eat food. They can grill up some hamburgers. Okay. They had food. So this is kind of one of those things when, people have like those martyrdom complexes, or they can't take responsibility for themselves, or making up some excuse and blaming somebody else. That's exactly what's happening here. And it's never really about the issue. You ever been in those arguments before and you realize, wait a second, we're not actually arguing about anything that's really the issue. The issue is that they didn't want to keep the Torah. They did not want to be obedient to his commands. Anything in Egypt was looking better at this point, even though they had it better now. Remember what he says in Deuteronomy: your shoes never gave out, your clothes. I mean, you had everything so good in the wilderness. And now our Nephash is dried up, empty of all excellence, empty of all except this man towards our eyes. And here, the God of all creation is in the cloud right in front of them as they're bickering. And the man was like coriander seed, and his eye was like the eye of bdellium. And the people ran quickly and gathered up and crushed it in small in hand mills, or perhaps pounded it in a mortar, and cooked it in pots and fashioned cakes of it. And the taste was like the taste of juicy sweet oil cakes. And when the dew fell down upon the encampment, hot man fell upon him. Now, we're talking here about the manna in the wilderness, right? So they have manna, and once again, keep in mind, and the Talmudic rabbinical commentators talking about this. I've commented a lot about this because Christian literature agrees with this. That this, of course, was a sign of the millennial kingdom, but the man in the wilderness tasted like whatever you wanted to taste like. Okay, so this whole idea that food was better in Egypt, they had manna. Okay, they didn't need flesh. They already had the flesh, the sheep and the goats. They weren't eating that because you could eat the manna and it would taste like roast beef if you wanted. Oh, a side of potatoes with gravy. Oh, apple pie, better than my mom made. Right? They had that, and yet they're still finding reason to complain. And Meshach heard and answered the people, bewailing, mourning for their families, each man at the entrance of his tent. And the anger of Yahweh, the ever-living, burned exceedingly. And in the eyes of Meshach, this was noxious, hurtful, a cause of trembling. Finally, somebody's trembling. I would probably be like shaking my boots too if I, see all these people mourning like this and weeping. And Meshach declared toward Yahweh, the ever-living. I love this, by the way. I love this chapter. This whole paragraph. For what reason have you done evil toward your servant? Have I not attained favor in your eyes? For you have placed all the burden of this people upon me. Have I conceived all the people? Conditionally, have I brought them forth? Even if you should declare unto me, lift him up in your bosom, like that which a supportive father does, the suckling, and carry them toward the ground, which I swore an oath unto their fathers. From where is there flesh enough to give to all this people? For they weep and mourn over me to say, give to us flesh and we shall eat. I am not able to myself alone to lift up all this people, for even a part of them is too heavy a weight. This is the great part. This is something that I think everybody out there can probably at some point in their life identify with. Therefore, conditionally, in this manner shall you fashion to me, kill, I beseech you, God, if I have attained favor in your eyes, so that I shall not observe my misfortune. It's just like, take me now, Lord. Have you ever, as a parent, you get to that point where you try to slip into the closet so that you can actually cry and just have that, you just want to let it out. Your kids have been crying all day over nothing. And finally you just go in there and then they find out you're in the closet and they start beating on the door. What are you doing in there? And it's just, you're like, leave me alone. Take me now, Lord. This is the point as the parent where Moses is at. He's in the closet, just wanting just to cry. And why did I ever want this? And Yahweh, the ever-living, declared toward Al-Mashahah, gather to me 70 men, bearded ones of Yasharel, which you have known them, old ones of the people, scribes, magistrates, and you shall take them toward the tent of meeting, and you will station them there with you. And I will descend to set words in order with you. There I will take away from part of the Ruach which is upon you, and will place over them. And with you they will lift up the burden of the people, and you will not lift her alone. And toward the people you will declare, you will set yourselves apart for the time following, and they shall eat flesh. For what have they mourned and wailed in the ears of Yahweh the ever-living to declare, who will give us flesh? For it was excellent unto us in Mitzrayim, or Egypt. And Yahweh has given to them flesh, and they will eat. Not one day will you eat, and not 2 days will you eat, and not 5 days will you eat, and not 10 days will you eat, and not 20, but until a month of days, until it will come forth from their nose and will exist to them a loathing on account of it, because they have despised Yahweh the ever-living, which is in their midst, and they have mourned, wept, and lamented to his face to declare, for what reason? For this we did go forth from Mitzrayim. So have you ever been in a situation where someone is demanding something, again, maybe you're a parent, and you're finally they're just complaining over food or whatever, and you're just you're so sick of it. You're you cook something up for them, and you're gonna eat this, and you're gonna like it, and you're gonna shove every, you're just gonna just put it all in your spoon. You're gonna shove it down your mouth, and you're gonna smile, and you're gonna like it. It's this is where they're at. In this point of the parenting tale, Yahweh has I am going to be shoving quail down your throats. You're going to be drowning in this. You're going to be so I'm going to give you so much quail, so much meat. You're going to be sorry you ever had this. And Mishal declared 600,000 footmen of the people in whose midst I am, and you have declared, I will give to them flesh, and they will eat a month of days. Will he slaughter the flocks and herds and attain flesh for them? Or conditionally, will he collect all the fish in the sea that enough be attained for them? And Yahweh, the ever-living, set words in order toward Mishah. Has the hand of Yahweh been cut off? At this time you will observe whether my purpose plan has been called out to you or not. And Mishah went forth and set forth words toward the people, the purpose plan of Yahweh, the ever-living. And he collected 70 men from the people, and he stationed them in a circuit round about the tent. And he descended, Yahweh, in the cloud mass, and he set words in order toward him, and he took away from part of Ha-Ruach, which was upon him, and he had gifted upon the 70, the bearded men. And Ha-Ra'uk, or the Ruach HaKodesh, existed, settling down over them, and they prophesied, and they did not cease. Is that amazing? There's plenty of Holy Spirit to go around. But to think that all of this was on Moses, and he actually took some of it away from Moses to give to these other men. And 2 men remained in the encampment, the one whose name was Aladad, and the second was named Meadad, and Ha-Ra'uk, she rested over them. And there's, of course, feminine reference here to the spirit. And they were among the written, but he went not forth, and they did prophesy in the encampment. And the boy ran, and he proclaimed conspicuously in the sight of all unto Mishah, and he declared, Aladad and Meadad are prophesying in the encampment. And this would be Joshua. Yahusha, son of Nu'un, a youth ministering unto Mishah, answered solemnly in a loud voice, Alleluia, restrain them. And Mishal had declared unto him, behold, you are jealous for me, but oh, if only all the people of Yahweh were prophets, and that Yahweh the ever-living would gift his Ra'uk upon them. And Mishal gathered toward the encampment, he and the bearded ones of Yasharel. And Ra'uk was sent out from Yahweh and caused to pass through quails out of the sea. And he spread abroad over the encampment like a day's journey here, and a day's journey here, in a circuit round about the encampment, and like 2 amaha upon the face of Ha'aratz. And the people rose up all the day and all the night and all the day following, and they collected him the quail. He who had little gathered 10, what's this word here? This is, the word is translated Homer from modern Israeli Hebrew, and it means a heap or a mound. Where was I? A heap or a mound. And they spread them out in a circuit round about the encampment. The flesh was still going round between their teeth before he had yet cut off. And the anger of Yahweh the ever-living burned against the people. And Yahweh struck against the people, an exceedingly forceful striking. And he called out the name of that standing place, the graves of lust. For there he buried the people who turned aside to desire evil ones. From the graves of lust, the people removed camp to Hatzarauth, and they existed there. And this will be one last section, and then we're going to be closing the Torah portion reading tonight. Miriam and Aaron quarrel with Mishah over his marriage. So it's, I love this Torah portion because anyone who's been in the ministry knows that when it rains, it pours. And you have these weeks where you're running around putting out fires, and there's just people in the ranks that are calling you out, and they're, you're a this and that, and I'm so righteous, and they got, all these whatever, and they're just throwing all their issues at you, and there's mutiny in the ranks. And unfortunately, in this case with Moshe, and this happens to every single one of us in our lifetime, where you feel betrayed by those closest to you. These are the two people who are closest to him, and they turn on him. And Miriam set forth words, and Aaron also, against Meshaha over the circumstances of the Kashayath Ashaha, the woman he had taken for himself, or he had taken a Kashayath woman. I'll be giving commentary on this later. And they declared, surely is it only in Meshaha that the words of Yahweh are set in order? Additionally, does he not set words in order by us? So Aaron and Miriam, like true siblings, do not accept his wife. And they're married as well, and they feel that their spouses are superior to his. And you get this feeling that Moses's wife, she was never, she just wasn't the pastor's wife. She wasn't up on stage next to him playing the guitar with him. She just wasn't doing the pastor's wife things. It wasn't a superficial marriage, to put it that way. Anyways, Yahweh, the ever-living, heard and responded. And the man Meshaha was greatly afflicted, more than all the Adam which is upon the face of the Adamaha. And Yahweh, the ever-living, spoke suddenly in a moment toward Al-Meshaha, and toward Al-Aaron, and toward Al-Miriam. Come forth, you three, toward the tent of meeting. Can you imagine this? I mean, he's speaking, I assume, from the cloud. And he's speaking audibly to all three of them. And the three came forth. Now, the reason why he's doing this is there's already been mutiny in the camp, right? He's already just killed a lot of people off at the graves of lust. And he wants to stop this, nip this in the bud before Aaron and Miriam do some serious damage. Because I've given you the example in the past of the way slander or gossip works with like the pillow with the feathers. Let's just say in this instance, I assume they haven't cut it open and the feathers haven't spread yet. But it was about to get really bad because they were about to knock Moses's wife, and there would have been no end to this. And Yahweh, the ever-living, descended in a platform of the cloud mass, and he took a stand at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and he called out Aaron and Miriam, and the two came forth. And he declared, hear and answer my words, I beseech you. If there are prophets of Yahweh, I, Yahweh, will make myself known in a vision, in a looking glass. There's an interesting word right there. I'll comment on that in just a second. I will set words in order in him in a dream. Not in this manner do I set words in order toward my servant Meshaha. In my house he is faithful. I set words in order unto him, mouth to mouth, and the appearance, and not in difficult sentences. And the form of Yahweh he shall behold. Therefore, why were you not reverently afraid to speak against my servant, against Meshaha? And the anger of Yahweh the ever-living burned against them, and he walked, and the cloud mass turned aside from over the tents, and behold, Miriam was struck down with leprosy like snow. So there you have another example of leprosy being a spiritual condition. And Aaron faced Miriam, and behold, she was struck with leprosy. And Aaron spoke toward Al-Meshaha, against me, Adunuia, I pray you, put in place upon us that sin which we did foolishly, and wherein we sinned. So here you see Aaron actually owning up and being responsible. I beg you, do not let her exist like one who is dead from his coming forth from his mother's womb, and his flesh is half consumed. And Meshaha called out, running toward Yahweh the ever-living, to declare, I beseech you, I pray healing for her. And Yahweh the ever-living, which is amazing too. The Meshaha, like he just got dissed by his sister, right? About his wife, and he wants his sister to be forgiven. And Yahweh the ever-living spoke toward Al-Meshaha, if her father but spat in her face, would she not be disgraced, put to shame for 7 days? She will be shut up 7 days from outside the encampment, and afterwards she will be collected. And Miriam was shut up from outside the encampment for 7 days. and the people did not break camp until Miriam had been collected. Afterwards, the people broke camp, and they inclined in the wilderness of Aran. So, of course, the 7 days reference the 7,000 years of human history, as you guys know. The eighth great day is the day of cleansing, and we see that played out constantly throughout Scripture. But I want to get really quickly back to the looking glass. How am I doing on time? So I was asking Pamela about this because I had never seen this in any translation before, and she said, well, you know, that's the word in Paleo and Hebrew for a mirror. And I was like, okay, well, do you think this is kind of metaphorical? Do you think this is literal? And she's like, I don't know. That's what I love about what Pamela does with her translation. She's like, she sees it in the word and she writes it out. And so we were talking about this kind of, very quickly, but we didn't really need to because she knows we've done the research on this. This is just looking at a paper I wrote on the legend of Prester John. And with Prester John, what point do I get to his letter? This is his letter right here. He talks about having one of these scryer mirrors. Let's see if I'll go all the way to the end of it. What do I talk about? Well, here's it right here. I mean, we can see different examples throughout literature in Grimm's fairy tales, ancient mythology. You have Vulcan, who he came up with the scrying mirror. We have of course the wicked queen there in Snow White, and of course she's a true narcissist in that she looks into a divine mirror and she can never see beyond herself, right? She sees a reflection, so she falls to it just like Narcissus himself. We have it in Lord of the Rings. We have Project Looking Glass, which I think is a legitimate thing. And according to the whistleblowers, it goes all the way back to Babylon. So it is very possible that Moses had a type of scrying mirror that he was communicating to Yahweh through. He would have taken this from Egypt when they looted. So the Egyptians likely had one. I don't doubt it. And don't know exactly what it looked like. Prester John claimed he had one. And with a lot of these scrying mirrors are kind of interesting because it's a kind of a morality play similar to the rings of power that Plato talks about with the invisible rings, that it's kind of a test on the actual soul of the person, his righteousness or his wickedness, who looks into the mirror and how he uses it either for his advantage or the advantages of humanity as a whole. Kind of interesting. So I don't really know. I don't want to spend too much time on that tonight because I got other things to look at. So let's talk about the two Passovers. This is a letter that Constantine wrote, apparently. And I'm kind of coming around to the position that Constantine was just he was a politician. And I think that he wanted peace in his kingdom. And so he chose a denomination of Christianity, maybe the most powerful at the time, and he unified the kingdom through that. So there were people who lost out, particularly those who were keeping the Sabbath day. Oops. But this is his letter that he wrote where he wanted to consummate Easter by ending the Passover. And it's kind of interesting the reason why. Now, there's a very specific reason to this because we read tonight about the two Passovers. So interesting commentary here in history. And he says, at the council, we also considered the issue of our holiest day, Easter. And it was determined by common consent that everyone everywhere should celebrate it on one and the same day. For what can be more appropriate or what more solemn than that this feast from which we have received the hope of immortality should be kept by all without variation, using the same order and a clear arrangement. And in the first place, it seemed very unworthy for us to keep this most sacred feast following the custom of the Jews. All right. So I'll quickly give some commentary in a little bit about the Jew tax. It is in the title of this video. And the way they were pushing away from the Torah. If there were certain things you did in the Torah with certain commands, you were given the Jew tax. And, people didn't want the Jew tax. They didn't want the government taxing them. So they stopped doing these commands. And Passover was one of them, and the Sabbath day as well. But in some regards here, from the position of a world leader, politician, even a religious leader, what he's doing kind of makes sense. Now, you look at the Torah movement today, and there's, nobody's on the same calendar. We've got 10 different, 20, 30 different calendars. I don't know how many. It's just everyone is keeping different Passovers. He talks in here about how there's 2 Passovers. Oh my goodness, today we've got like 30 of them, right? With just so many Passovers. And that it goes through all the different feasts. So, and one of the things I've noticed with the Torah movement, really the red pill movement as a whole, that goes to Christianity or the non-Christians, is there's just no love for authority anymore. Everyone's doing what's right in his own eyes. I shouldn't say overgeneralize with everyone, but you guys know what I mean. Just generally as a rule, it seems like people are doing what is right in their own eyes. What Constantine is trying to do here is he's trying to get these religious leaders in place, be like, no, this is the structure of the empire, and you're just going to do what they say. They're going to set a feast day, and everyone is going to keep that feast day. No, I'm not justifying what he's doing, but I'm just maybe hoping to clarify in a way that makes sense. Since we have cast aside their way of calculating the date of the festival, the Jews, we can ensure that future generations can celebrate this observance at the most accurate time, which we have kept from the first day of the Passion until the present time. Therefore, having nothing in common with that most hostile people, the Jews, let us, most honored brothers, withdraw ourselves from that detestable association. And he goes on to say that they have terrible judgment, that they have rejected the Messiah. Well, that's a good point to make. I mean, they didn't have the best judgment, but says they constantly err in the utmost degree and will celebrate the feast of Passover a second time in the same year. This is kind of interesting. I've kind of wondered what he meant by this. I've suggested in the past that Constantine might be talking about second Passover, what we just read in Numbers, that there are people who couldn't keep the first and they're keeping the second. And these religious leaders are going like, what's going on? But I kind of think too that there just probably were different calendars, right? You had the lunar Sabbath crowd, you had the 7th-day Sabbath crowd, you had probably the dark of the mooners, the full mooners, just like today, you had people on the Essene calendar, and he's just noticing, there's none of them are unified. How do you unify a religious movement by allowing that to happen? So that's why he brought it into it there. And he talks here about how there's some people in the East that still are keeping Sabbath. So one of the things I found in my research is I actually believe that the whole kind of Antioch, Jerusalem wing, probably going all the way through Syria, probably out to Babylon, that whole Christian wing, they were very Hebrew, keeping the Sabbath, very Nazarene, maybe Ebionite, whatever. But and at this time with Constantine, he was trying to bring an end to that. He had the Roman crowd, the very kind of Greek thinking crowd, but he didn't have the Hebrews. So this is an interesting comment that Pilate says in the book of the Illuminators. So you see that the problem with the unifying feast goes way back to the time of Mashiach and before. And Pilate says this is the context, of course, that the trial of Yahshua. And he says, and he's speaking to the Jews, they're like, crucify him. And he says, you are a perverse race, over concerned with unworldly things and ensnaring yourselves in your own net of goodness. You cannot even agree on the dates of your own festivals or the nature of your Elohim, which is incredible because that's just like us today. They're like back then, they couldn't even agree on what days they were supposed to keep the Sabbath. You agree to follow your God, but some say we go this way and others say we go another. Is that not? That's what like it is at the unexpected cosmology. We go this way and those people go that way, and they all look at us and go, you guys are so unrighteous. And it's just like everyone's name calling, and you're a sinner and you're participating in witchcraft or whatever, because it's just all these accusations and that kind of stuff. It's so silly, but that's the way it is. All right. I have shown, and this goes back to the Book of the Illuminators as well, the Gospel of Calliope, that Yahshua, at the Last Supper, he did keep Passover. That was his Passover. Amazingly, even though he was crucified on the Passover of the Jews, so he was technically their Passover lamb, and many of his own followers, they were not at the trial, sadly enough. Like, he had people in top ranks who were his followers, Nicodemus being one of them, Joseph of Arimathea, but they actually did not keep Messiah's Passover, which I think is fascinating. They weren't there because they were preparing for their Passover, even though he had already kept his. I think that's fascinating commentary, because it shows that actually Yahshua, that wasn't his biggest concern. He was here for a hot minute. He could have explained it. It was not his biggest concern. I think he was kind of okay with everybody in the religious tradition trying to figure this out as to when they were supposed to keep it. He had bigger fish to fry. So I don't need to go through all that I've covered this before. A lot of different passages talk about that. But I have put forward the idea that Joseph of Arimathea was not able to keep Passover, as was Nicodemus. Assuming that they were keeping the Passover of the Jews, they were that passage in Numbers that we just read tonight. Was it Numbers 9, I think it was, where they were unclean. They had buried a dead body, therefore they could not keep it. So they would have kept the second Passover. Incredibly, Yahshua was resurrected this time. He was on the earth for another 40 days. He would have been at the second Passover. So he would have presumably, we don't really know, but I'm assuming that he would have kept Passover with them, which I think is really special, right? The people that buried him took care of his body. He would have come back and had it with them. That would have been really special. So I'm going to ask the question, should we keep the first or second? So let's go over this really quickly. Let's say that you are clean, all right? You're not burying a dead body. Your loved one doesn't die in first Passover, and but you're there is no temple. You're not in Jerusalem. You know how they say, or every Seder dinner, next year Jerusalem, right? We're not going to Jerusalem. So should we be keeping the first Passover? Well, my answer is yes, we should, and here's why. How are we doing on time? Oh boy, we're not going to make it. So I'm not going to even read through all these passages, but just look at John. That's weird. I'm in a trailer park and a cop just drove by. There was a loud bang earlier, so it sounded like a gun went off. So I didn't hear a scream, so hopefully everyone's okay. John chapter 5, we see, no, that's not it. Okay, we see in Ezekiel the idea of being a little sanctuary. So this building up, this idea that we would be a tabernacle unto ourselves. We see in Peter that we are living stones. 1 Peter chapter 2, to whom coming as unto a living stone, ye also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house. Right? You guys know all this. This is all just so much review that we all know the idea that we are the temple, right? And so that's my whole thing, that we don't need to go to a temple in Jerusalem. Because we are a temple, our bodies are temples, the Holy Spirit resides within us, that we can keep the first Passover. You can see I have a lot of commentary on that, but I've covered that so many times. I don't need to go do again. Let's talk about the Jew tax really quickly. If you do not know what the Jew tax was, this is one of the best explanations I have found as to why the first century Christians, of course, were Hebrew. They were Jewish. They were being brought into the synagogues. You see the Paul, you see the apostles. They weren't envisioning anything else. They were bringing you in to the Sabbath, to the synagogue, hearing from the seat of Moses, just like we're doing here. They didn't see it in any other way. But what happened is when the temple was destroyed in AD 70, Titus is the one, actually Emperor Vespasian, excuse me. He's the one that instituted the Jew tax. It was called the Fiscus Judaicus. Of course, it would be a Yud instead of the J, right? The Judaikus, which means Jewish tax. And it was as a revenge tactic against the war peddlers, though it was imposed on all the Jews throughout the empire, not just upon those who took part in the revolt. The tax was more like a tithe amounting to 2 denarii, which just so happens to be the equivalent to the 1/2 shekel that had previously been paid for the upkeep of the temple. So, ouch. So he's basically saying, Vespasian saying, to all of you who were giving those 2 denarii for the upkeep of the temple, you now have to tax me. So if I find out that you are Jewish, that you're doing any Jewish customs, you're going to be paying this. And it started with the Sabbath day. It started with circumcision. They were going and making, like, if you were circumcised, you must be a Jew, you're going to get taxed. There are actually examples. I gave this whole thing. You can look it up in the Nazarene, my paper on that, Christianity versus the Millennial Kingdom. There are examples where people would kind of, gang rape is a strong word, but they would gang up on dudes in the streets. If they suspected, they would lift their skirts or togas and they would check, oh, you're circumcised, better pay the tax from that point on. So there was a lot of people who were scared of this, and the Jews didn't have the best reputation anyways. They're denying the Messiah. So this is why you start seeing this separation from the Torah, and it's unfortunate because this is the Yah's instructions of righteous living. So they started coming up with this new theology about the law of Christ is different. There's some things morality are the same, but it's kind of different. And we're gonna keep it. It became very convenient to start meeting on Sundays because, right, it's the 8th day theology that they came up with, even though the 4th commandment strictly says the 7th day. They came up with the 8th day theology because he resurrected on that day, that kind of stuff. And it's just ways that they could part from it. This is why Christmas started coming up pretty early down the turnpike. Of course, Easter pretty early as well, as kind of filling in for Passover in that whole time period. And I'm not going to judge all the hearts who went through that. There was a lot of propaganda, there was a lot of pressure, there was a lot of people being lied to, just as it is in life, and they made choices accordingly. And I know that Yah is going to judge everyone's hearts, including my own. And I'm not judging those people. Many of the people who started being convinced that the 8th day theology was the way to go or whatever, you guys know that, like, I tell people, like, just whatever you're convinced is your Sabbath. Inevitably we're all going to disagree on doctrine, so whatever you are convinced that is you're being obedient to the commands, do it. Just do it. Don't become so jaded that you don't do anything. So Titus, Domitian, who was his younger brother, so Titus is the son of Vespasian, then his brother takes over. They keep pushing out the Jew tax. So it goes to circumcision, keeping the Sabbath, you were given the Jew tax, and it just goes on and on and on from there. So eventually it gets to Irenaeus right here. And unfortunately, on my travels through Europe, I really wanted to go to his church, the cathedral that was built up upon his church in the south of France. We just didn't have the time for it. It would have been a day's kind of journey in the wrong direction. We had very little time as we're passing through. I got to go to the grotto. It was between that and the grotto of Mary Magdalene. That was no contest. I was going to the grotto of Mary Magdalene. Anyways, he took part in this. It's called the Quarto Deciman controversy between I think it lasted from 189 to 199. So about a 10-year period at the end of the 2nd century. And he came to the defense of Polycarp, who was dead by that point. And some of the others. He came to the defense of, what is his name? Polycrates. Polycrates came down through Polycarp, came down through John. And Polycrates, basically, he had control over Eastern Christianity. So think again, I think he was, you see that he was the bishop of Ephesus, but he actually, he might have had, again, Jerusalem, all of that. And Rome, they're getting really ticked off over this because they want Easter, they want Christmas, they want, their holidays implemented. They don't want the Sabbath being kept. You see Pope Sixtus there. I actually went to Pope Sixtus's burial spot in Rome, believe it or not. They were anyways, he comes to defense of them, and he writes this letter. And this is what he writes in defense of Polycrates. He says, he's reminding them that the Philip, and actually it was more than Philip. I mean, it was Andrew, it was John, of the others. They were all keeping the feast, as we know. They were the disciples of Yahshua. But he says, as for us, then, we scrupulously observe the exact day, neither adding nor taking away. For in Asia, great luminaries have gone to their rest, who shall rise again in the day of the coming of Yahuwah. He's talking about the millennial kingdom, when he cometh with glory from heaven and shall raise again all the saints. So for those of you who are convinced that the millennial kingdom happened in 70 AD, we've gone way beyond that now in history, right? They're still waiting for the millennial kingdom to come into being. I speak of Philip, one of the 12 apostles, who was laid to rest, and his 2 daughters, who arrived at old age unmarried, his other daughter also, who passed her life under the influence of the Holy Spirit and reposes at Ephesus. Then you have John, moreover, who reclined on the Lord's bosom and who became a priest wearing the mitre, and a witness and a teacher. He rests at Ephesus. Then there is Polycarp, both bishop and martyr of Smyrna, and Thracias from Eumenia, both bishop and martyr, who rests at Smyrna. Why should I speak of Sasagoras, bishop and martyr, who rests at Laodicea, of the blessed Papirius, moreover, and of Mileto? He goes through all these names, people who they know. And he says, these all kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month, in accordance with the gospel. It's interesting there. He calls it the gospel instead of the Torah, the good news, but it's in accordance with the Torah, without ever deviating from it, but keeping to the rule of faith. And he talks about, he says that, that he goes on to make this case that goes like, even in your own ranks, the people who aren't keeping Passover, I speak to all these people who say we ought to obey God rather than men. So why are we getting all this pressure to have to obey men when God clearly tells us to keep the Passover? And he goes on to say that if he were to write down all the names of all the world leaders who were keeping the Sabbath and the Passover, it would be a very long book. And he didn't even want to give them all up. But he's like, look, guys, like, you're singling out certain people. They really want to take Polycrates out because to make an example of him, then the rest would follow. And, unfortunately, most of Christianity did fall to that. So, all right, let's see what it says. Numbers 11 with the Aramaic Targum, with the complaining in the camp, the murmuring in the camp. First of all, we don't even know what they were complaining about. I mentioned before there was the extremities of the outskirts of the camp. So it was the furthest from the holiness of the sinner. Kind of a lesson to be learned there. So if we find ourselves murmuring to God about, I don't like my circumstances in life, I don't like the food I have, I don't like this, I don't like that, you're just complaining, and I liked it better, but I don't like my service to you or whatever, you're furthest away from the holiness at that point. All right. It says in the Aramaic Targum that the flaming fire was kindled among them from Yahuwah, which destroyed some of the wicked in the outskirts of the house of Dan, with whom was a graven image. So there's other places in the Aramaic Targum where it talks about, they didn't see the pillar of fire, whatever. They had strange worship. So apparently, clearly, there was something systematic or symptomatic going on with these people, that they weren't happy with the God they were following. They weren't being honest when they said they had better food in Egypt. It was they had better gods in Egypt as well, the very gods that were destroyed and judged. It goes on to talk about how they had bread from heaven and still they were murmuring. This is what Yahshua says in Matthew. He says, "For this reason I say to you, do not be worried about your life, as to what you will eat or what you will drink, nor for your body as to what you will put on. Is life not more than food, and the body more than clothing?" And of course, keep in mind, they had find food and clothing for the whole time. Look at the birds of the sky. They do not sow, nor reap, nor gather crops into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more important than they? And which of you by worrying can add a single day to his lifespan? It's like this is all commentary on Numbers, isn't it? And why are you worried about clothing? Notice how the lilies of the field grow. They do not labor, nor do they spin thread for cloth. Yet I say to you that not even Solomon in all his glory clothed himself like one of these. But if God so clothes, or Allahayam so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, will he not much more clothe you? You of little faith. Do not worry then, saying, what are we to eat? Or what are we to drink? Or what are we to wear for clothing? For the goyim, the mixed multitude, eagerly seek all these things. Now that's interesting right there, because I kind of skipped over this. I shouldn't have. We see that the mixed multitude is said in the mixed collection, which was among them, turn aside, desiring, and in addition, the sons of Yashua also turned themselves aside, bewailing and declaring. But in this passage, it seems to talk about the mixed multitude first, and that the Israelites were in agreement with the goyim, with the nations, when they should not have. They started listening to them. So there's an interesting connection here to Yahshua's commentary with Numbers. All right, let's talk a little bit about, I'm assuming this painting is of Miriam. That's pretty sensual, actually, but I'm assuming she's putting Moses in the basket there. So let's talk a little bit about who is Eldad and Medad. And this passage comes from the Aramaic Targum. I'm going to read a little bit of rabbinical commentary here as well. But two men had remained in the camp, the name of the one Eldad and the name of the second Medad, the sons of Elizaphan bar Parnak, whom Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, bare to him when Amram, her husband, had put her away. Say what? And to whom she had been espoused before she gave birth to Moshe. Now, this is just coming from the Aramaic Targum. I'm just the messenger, but apparently when at some point, Jochebed, the father of Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, put his wife away, and she went and married another man, and she had these two sons. So these two guys who are prophesying with the Ruach HaKodesh, who Joshua or Yahushua is protesting, they are half brothers of Moses. So I looked this up, and this comes from this passage comes from Shema Rabbah, little Talmudic commentary on what they think is going on here. And this is commentary on Exodus 1:15. This is what it says in Exodus 1:15. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah and the name of the other Puah. So they believe that Shiphrah is another name for Jochebed, who is Moses' mother. This is their commentary. When he saw that they were procreating, he issued a decree against the males that is what is written. The king of Egypt said to the midwives, who were the midwives? Rav said, a daughter-in-law and her mother-in-law, Jochebed and Elisheva, daughter of Aminadav. Rabbi Shmuel bar Naaman says, a woman and her daughter, Jochebed and Miriam. So he's saying that these two right here, this is the Miriam, the sister of Moses. She's the other one, Puah. And Miriam was no more than 5 years old, as Aaron was 3 years older than Moses. Our rabbis of blessed memory said she would go with her mother Jochebed and his sister, and she was very quick. While the child is still young, his character is recognizable. That is what Solomon said, even a lad is recognized through his deeds in Proverbs 20:11. Because she would attend to the baby when he would emerge covered in blood. Puah, because she would express wine into the babies after her mother had attended to them, which is very interesting that apparently they would, it sounds like they're claiming that before the baby would be put up to the breast to receive milk, that they would receive wine. In the ancient world, this was done, as well as honey. The Egyptians, the Greeks, others did it. They would give the baby a little bit of honey on the lips before bringing them up to the breast for milk. And of course, we have the saying, the land of milk and honey, right? Alternatively, Shiphrah, this is Moses' mother, because Israel procreated in her day, Puah, who would receive the baby when they would say it was dead. And she's 5 years old, Miriam, and she had the ability to, bring the child to life, I guess. Even when my son, one of my two sons, was born, he came out purple. He wasn't breathing. He was all but dead. And I just went and breathed into his mouth, and he came to be. Alternatively, Shiphrah, because she made her actions pleasing before God. Puah, because she caused Israel to appear before God. Okay, let me just skip some of this because I want to get to the part where. So it says here, Amram said, "Isn't Israel begetting children for naught?" Immediately he separated from Jochebed and abstained from sexual relations. So this is after Amram does this after Pharaoh puts out the decree. He wants to spare his wife. He doesn't want anything to happen to his wife. He doesn't want anything to happen to any child to be killed. And he actually finds out that she's pregnant with Moses at this time. And it says right here, he divorced his wife when she was 3 months pregnant. This is Moses. All Israel rose and divorced their wives. His daughter said to him, "Your decree is harsher than Pharaoh's." This is Miriam speaking. "As Pharaoh decreed only against the males, and you against the males and the females. Pharaoh is wicked, and it is uncertain whether his decree will be fulfilled or whether it will not be fulfilled. However, you are righteous, and your decree will be fulfilled." So then he listened to his daughter Miriam. He arose and remarried his wife. All Israel arose and remarried their wives. That is Puah, who was impudent toward her father. So I don't know. I don't know how maybe she had twins. I don't know, or even how that could happen. How could she go off with another man and come back to Jochebed? I don't know. That's rabbinical commentary. Take it up with them. I thought I would point that out. I thought that was interesting. So reading from Legends of the Jews, we see with the ungrateful multitude, it says, when God commanded Israel to set out from Sinai and continue their march, the Israelites were glad. For during their stay in that place, they had throughout 11 days received new laws daily. And they hoped that after having departed from the holy mountain, they would receive no further laws. Hence, instead of making a day's march from Sinai, as God had commanded them, they marched incessantly for 3 days in order to be as far as possible from the holy spot. They behaved like a boy who runs quickly away after dismissal from school. I confess I've done that a few times as a boy. I hated school so much that his teacher might not call him back. Unfortunately, I always had to go back to school. But now I was kind of thinking about this. This is Legends of the Jews. I like all this commentary. I like rabbinical commentary. I like understanding how they think. I kind of think, though, that they might be talking about the oral law, which is the Talmudic stuff. And they're, I don't really know. I just leave it for you guys to decide. Nevertheless, I could see their point of view here, that I really do believe that the Hebrews, Israelites, really were that disdainful towards the Torah and the God that they were following. They even comment on a little bit further down here. But all this, now it's speaking about the flesh pots of Egypt. But all this murmuring and these complaints were only a pretext to sever themselves from God. And there it is right there. I agree with that. That it's never really about what you're arguing about, right? It's always about something else. And ultimately, it was a relationship with God. They were not happy with him. For first of all, they actually possessed many herds and much cattle. That is true. Enough plentifully to satisfy their lusting after flesh if they had really felt it. That is true. And manna, furthermore, had the flavor of every conceivable kind of food. So all they had to do while eating it was wish for a certain dish. And they instantly perceived in manna the taste of the desired food. Again, according to both traditions, that is true. So it says the true state of affairs was that they had a lurking dissatisfaction with the yoke of the law. It is certain that they had not had in Egypt better food for which they now longed. For their taskmasters, far from giving them dainties, gave them not enough straw for making bricks. Think about that. So if they didn't have enough straw for making bricks, how in the world did they have better food? But in Egypt, they had lived undisturbed by laws, and it was their unrestrained life that they desired back. Does this not explain Christianity today? So as this movement is building and more people are coming to realization that the Torah is Yah's instructions in righteous living, it's our Father's very character, it is eternal. When we go to heaven someday, it's going to be the law of the land. Why not start keeping it now? You can be righteous, right? As this is spreading and people are learning this, there's a lot of Christians out there in the face of this. They will come up with all the doctrinal statements and they will argue and they'll bicker and all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, and I'm not the judge of every man's heart, some of them may be truly convinced, but subconsciously, this is probably it. They enjoyed the being free from the law, having that Protestant grace, whatever that is. Has nothing to do with any kind of works whatsoever, just living they enjoy that a lot better. They would rather be slaves in Egypt at the end of the day. And Yah is one of those gods that he gives us what we want. What does Paul have to say here? We might end on this tonight. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, no, we can't end on that. I'm not going to read from, I'll read from Paul and then we'll get into this because we got to talk about Moses' wife being black. We'll go a little bit over time today. It's worth it. This is what Paul says. Neither let us tempt Messiah as some of them also tempted and were destroyed of serpents. We haven't gotten there yet. Neither murmur ye as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer. Who's the destroyer? El Shaddai. Remember that Abraham and Jacob knew him as El Shaddai. Moses knew him as Yahweh. However, some of them still knew him as El Shaddai. Now, all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore, let him that thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. Words of wisdom for all of us. Don't be like those Israelites that rebelled against the Torah and murmured. All right, let's talk about Moses' wife. So reading from the Aramaic Targum in chapter 12, it says that when Miriam and Aaron started murmuring, they were murmuring against the Cushai woman. And it says specifically that whom the Cushai had caused Moshe to take when he had fled from Pharaoh, but whom he had sent away because they had given him the queen of Cush, and he had sent her away. So this is not the Midianite woman, all right? This is a different wife. So according to this, we're looking that Moses had two wives. This is not Zipporah. Zipporah is not African, but he married an Ethiopian woman. So what happened is that this woman, the reason why they're murmuring, according to the Aramaic Targum, is they said, hath Yahuwah spoken only with Moshe that he should be separated from the married life? Hath he not spoken with us also? And it was heard before Yahuwah. So according to this, Moses was not having relations, conjugal or otherwise, with this Ethiopian woman. He was with his other wife, but not this woman. We'll get more into that. So this is the Cushite peoples, just to the southwest of the Red Sea, underneath Egypt. The kingdom of Cush, I was looking into them a little bit more today, and of course they apparently adapted many of the Egyptian gods. But what was unique about this people group is that historically they put a big emphasis on the matriarchy. And they had patriarchs, they had kings, but they put a big emphasis on queens. Almost think of like modern day Queen of England or even Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth, so on and so forth. And this actually lines up with the story in Jasher, in which the queen had a lot of power. She was making decisions when Moses married her. And then, of course, this is where people are pitting Sheba in there too as an Ethiopian, and that's a whole additional story. Here's an 18th or 19th century painting of Moses with his black wife. They didn't do her a lot of favor there, did they? It's almost like they were kind of trying to, I don't know. Anyways, I love including food in my Torah portions. I should do it every week. I should just have it sponsored by some sort of food group, hamburgers, tacos, something. Well, this week is brought to us by Ethiopian food, which if you have never had Ethiopian food, what are you waiting for? Now, unfortunately, because I live in Charleston, South Carolina, there is no Ethiopian food that I know of in this city, district, county, anywhere near here. Maybe up in Colombia. I don't really know. I don't know what the Ethiopians have against us. I am so sorry if we have wronged you in any way. Please come to our city and open up a restaurant. I love Ethiopian food. Actually, my Sarah, my wife, does way more. There's a place down in Florida that we will be going to this summer because she loves so much. And so the Ethiopian food, if you go in there and you ask for silverware, I'm saving you the embarrassment. They will know that this is your first time, and that who wants to admit it's their first time, right? So you get these spongy rolls that you wrap all of your food in, and you get these plates are awesome. They're just intended for everyone at the table, and they give you everything on the menu pretty much. It's so good. And because they eat clean, by the way. I think, I don't see pork or anything like that in there. They adapt to the Jewish culture, and they're very clean eating. Here's another thing that the Ethiopians have introduced to the world is their version of coffee, which is it. If you ever go to Ethiopian restaurant, order the coffee for dessert. Okay, I'm saving you once again the embarrassment. You get it for dessert. You have your coffee for dessert, and they will bring it out often with like burning incense, and it smells so good. And you smell that incense as they pour it in front of you, and it's the best tasting coffee. This is what got my wife hooked on coffee. She drinks coffee now. It's because she saw me drinking their coffee, and I'm just like, yeah. She just wanted a taste of it, and she got hooked. And of course, these two women are selling it right here. Their Ethiopian coffee. This is the flag of Ethiopia. That's the line of Judah. Of course, they identify with the Jews. Long history there. One of the things I want to do tonight, I didn't get around to it, was looking into the Ark of the Covenant. I was having this conversation with Pamela and Rebecca last night about, is the Ark of the Covenant really there in Ethiopia to this day? There's a lot of research on that. This is the story of in Jasher, when Moses is a general for Pharaoh in Egypt. He goes down to conquer them, and her name in this is Adoniah. She actually hands over the city to Moses on the basis of saying, "Look, I will give you the city. You don't have to come and kill us all, but you have to be my wife." And she really loved Moses, and so he agreed. He's like, "Okay." And of course, then he fled, and we get into the second wife. So keep in mind, this is Jasher, and in Jasher, they have a very elongated story of meeting Zipporah, and she's clearly a different woman. Okay, so it's not the same woman. I'm not going to go through all Jasher, but you can see that in the 70s if you want to read that as a homework assignment. There is an old medieval illumination of it right there, showing he. I guess that's a wedding ring he's putting on. I don't really know. He looks definitely younger there. He's a blonde Moses at that time, marrying her. Now, her name is Tharbis, according to other traditions. This is Josephus. Let me just read Josephus's account. Irenaeus, who I quoted from earlier tonight, he also talks about the same story. So in the early Christian church, they also believed that Moses had two wives. That was kind of lost in more modern Christianity. This is what Josephus says. Tharbis was the daughter of the king of the Ethiopians. She happened to see Moses as he led the army near the walls and fought with great courage. And admiring the subtlety of his undertakings and believing him to be the author of the Egyptian success, when they had before despaired of recovering their liberty, and to be the occasion of the great danger the Ethiopians were in, When they had before boasted of their great achievements, she fell deeply in love with him, and upon the prevalency of that passion, sent to him the most faithful of all her servants to discourse with him about their marriage. He thereupon accepted the offer, on condition she would procure the delivering up of the city, and gave her the assurance of an oath to take her to his wife, and that when he had once taken possession of the city, he would not break his oath to her. All right, moving on. There is a depiction of her there, Tharbus, in the Ten Commandments. However, in the Ten Commandments, the Cecil B. DeMille, he did two versions, a silent film, and then the 1955. They're not married in that one. She just makes an appearance, but they actually did an astonishing amount of research for the Ten Commandments. Everything from like even the Ten Commandments themselves are in paleo. So I'm very impressed with all the characters that they put into that movie, even if they decided not to do the polygyny route, to upset the evangelical base of the 1950s and tip them off, even though the Jews knew that he was married to two women. So I think I'm going to end there. This is Legends of the Jews. Yep, I'm going to end there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the Torah portion tonight. Hopefully it was a blessing to you, and I hope to keep doing this. Thank you everybody who tunes in, and just a reminder, if Yah puts it on your hearts, we need your help to continue this ministry going. I'm thrilled that Pamela and Rebecca have been paid. We actually had a celebration dinner last night. The three of us, we brought in another woman who is taking part in the funding of this, and we just had a Thanksgiving thank you Yah celebration dinner. I was able to pay them, got them. I bought them dinner as well, and because we live thousands or hundreds or thousands of miles away, we I did DoorDash. We paid for DoorDash to bring them a nice steak dinner or something like that. But that being said, thank you everyone who has continued to support this ministry, and I hope to do this many more weeks, many more years. Love you guys. Have a restful Sabbath and good rest of your week.